All right, what's up? Welcome back to Shroud Stories. You're gonna have to bear with me because I got super sick pretty much right after the video aired last week. I've been down for the count, so I got like some sinus stuff or something going on. But anyway, that's why I sounded all nasally and weird. But anyways, we wanted to make sure we did a Shroud for you guys this week. We want to keep the ball rolling because last week seems like you guys really enjoyed the longboard video, and we were talking about rails and things and what they do for you and in the video prior to that one. So, following rails, what longboards do for you, now we're going to bring in the Finless board, which we talked about, and talk about rails more in depth because, as you can see, the only fin that I have is about a ½ inch tall. So, I'm really going to be relying on my rails to get me going on this board. It's a 6'6" John Wagner. It's called I think it's the bluegill. Yeah, because Timmy has the blue fin. This is the bluegill, yeah. So it's a cool board. It actually has some I think Ryan Birch might have pulled some inspiration from John Wagner. If you guys know who Ryan Birch is, great surfboard builder down in Encinitas, California. But you'll notice the outline, it's wider right here than it is right here. So it goes wide point's probably up here in the belly somewhere, and then it goes in and then back out again. Big swallowtail, double stringers, and then it has a pretty cool bottom concave going on it, where there's like single concave up to the stringers, and then it goes to like panel V, like going down here. So it's an interesting bottom contour, an interesting rail outline. It's a very progressive surfboard, you could say. So we're gonna give this thing a fly, and I want you guys to watch for how the board is interacting with the water while I'm surfing it. So let's go for a shroud, and we'll meet back up here, and I'll walk you guys through what I feel when I ride a board that has no fins in it. Now, bear in mind, it's probably knee high right now, so hopefully we get some waves, but it's firing, so let's go get it. All right, so that was a iffy shroud. It was pretty tough out there. We tried our best. The waves were really small, not very cooperative, but we managed to get a couple that kind of explain what I wanted to portray for rails benefiting you on your surfboard. Now, the first thing that I think I want to go into is a lot of fin companies will try to tell you that this fin will give you more drive than the other. And sure, it might help in incremental amounts, but the rail is really where you're going to get all of your drive from. If you think about it, a fin is only yay tall by yay wide, whereas a rail is the entire length of your surfboard, whatever surfboard you're riding, if it's 5'6" or 8'6". All that rail in the water is where you get that projection out of your turns. Flex in the surfboard will help with that as well, but A lot of it comes from the rail. The rail shape is important, number one. And number two, staying on that rail and trusting it. It's kind of like a snowboard rail as well, is a great way to compare it. Snowboards don't have any fins. They float on top of snow, which is frozen water. And they use a hard metal edge on the rail of their snowboards to really bite into the snow and grip you through turns. And the only thing that they're relying on is the rail of the snowboard. You'll see when guys are in powder, it looks more similar to surfing, where the nose is kind of lifted more out of the snow and the tail is a little bit more in the snow, a little deeper, because that's where you're going to get most of your bite from. The front is just to steer you and keep you on top, keep you floating. The same exact thing can apply in surfing. So when some people do bottom turns, I notice they push a lot with their back foot and it kind of pivots their board sideways, and you can see that they're really surfing from their fins. But something that'll really help counter that is a finless surfboard or a single fin, or twin fins. You can use your fins quite a bit to generate speed, but you still have to rely on your rail a little bit. But rail surfing is the most important thing to helping out your style, to elevate your surfing. All right, for example, like this wave right here. So you can see I take off in the tiny wave. My feet, for example, right here, you can see my feet are pretty narrow, pretty close together. And my left hand's actually dragging into the face of the wave, slow me down a little bit to keep me in the power source in the pocket where you get all your speed from. But you'll see, look at how much of my board is engaged in the water. Like all the way up till the nose of the board is in the water, just like when you're snowboarding, when you're on rail on like a harder packed run, your whole entire board is touching the snow. So that way you can use that whole rail to push you through that turn or that carve. So the same thing's going for right here. And I'm generating speed, and as I'm starting to notice the section opening up, you can still see a lot of the rails engaged right there. And I take that little shuffle back so I can get my back foot on the back of the board. And that's where you're gonna lift the nose a little bit and get the nose to swing around into a turn. So I'm gonna start pivoting onto my toes right here at this exact moment. And then I'm gonna swing all the way around. And you'll see as I'm coming around, because the wave's so short and my board's so long, it's hard to keep the nose out of the water. So what ends up happening is the nose will stuff in, and as it's coming around, it'll want to bring that tail around with it. So then it'll pivot you into a 360, and that's kind of what I end up trying to do. But I'm not sliding out uncontrollably here, and that's because I'm using the rail. There's hard edge on the rail of that board that's like, I don't even know how long, like a normal surfboard's hard edge would be something like this maybe. This one's like double that. So I'm using the hard edge of the rail and the round part of the rail going forward to glue into the water and hold all the way through the turn. A lot of surfboard shapers have told me that round edges will let the water wrap around and grab, whereas hard edges will let the water release. So that's why they have the round rail up in the front and the hard edge off the tail, because when the water's entering the board, you want it to grab onto the board and hold it stable. And when it's coming out the back, you want it to release off the tail so that you can get it around and get it moving, get it mobile. So that's just kind of one example of a little carve. And you can see on this next wave right here, I pop up and I do a little pump, just like I always do on my shortboards. You can do the exact same thing that you're doing on a shortboard on a finless board, like hands down. You see those guys, riding those rabbit foot boards or whatever with the really pointy tip tail thing. Those guys will surf those boards like freaking Tom Curran or something. Like they'll do huge hacks and like come off the top and do off the lips really well. They surf them really well. But that being said, you can see right here, I can do a bottom turn just like I would on a shortboard, generate speed. I do the exact same thing I'm always doing. I expand, I shrink back down, and then I trim. And I let the speed that I've generated carry me through that whitewash section So you can see I'm just trimming along, trying to have as little friction on the bottom of the board as possible until I get into this open face section. I can see it's gonna start stretching out again. So then I inch my way up to the tip of the nose and I do what they call a little cheater 5 here, but that was just kind of a silly thing. I didn't know what to do, honestly. I was just screwing around at that point. But yeah, like I said, this was kind of a bad day for examples of finless riding, but you know, there's a couple in there that will really show you the rail engaging in the board. But like I said in the beginning, the one thing I want you to focus on is foot placement, and where you're putting your pressure is the second biggest thing. So foot placement, like I said, do a squat, look at where your board's at, and look at where the dark marks are on your wax, and then line your feet up from there. And if you think you might need to narrow your stance or widen it a little bit, I would adjust according. And then another thing is when you're doing your turns, don't push so hard on your back foot. I know I said that I scooted back so that I could get on the tail of my board to lift the nose up out of the water in that one example I mentioned previously, but be careful doing that too much, because then you're relying too much on your fins. If you can get your pressure nice and even, a little bit more on the back foot, you'll let that whole front of that rail engage, and there's curve in that board. So that rail, as it comes around, is gonna bring you through that turn, you know? So that's my two biggest things with rails, why they're super beneficial and why it'll clean your surfing up, hands down, 10 out of 10. So thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what I did poorly. Let me know what I did great. If you guys have any suggestions of things that you've noticed with rails on surfboards, or why rails are good, or you know, why my theory is out of the Looney Tunes, yeah, drop it in the comments. I always like reading about it. I always like learning about it. So thank you guys for tuning back in. We're going to keep the ball rolling. Sorry I'm a day late. Christmas is almost here. Enjoy the holidays, and I'll catch you guys next week.